Hey, are you a beginning or intermediate romance writer? Then Gwen Hayes' Romancing the Beat, summarized here, may be just what you need. Moulin Rouge. At last, the school of fiction has come to the Cimetière Montmartre Cemetery. We've all noticed, if we consume romance stories, that there are very distinct patterns found therein. The term trope makes sense when talking about a popular or even an essential element of the literary genre. So romance is divided into many subgenres, many with subgenres of their own, and accordingly there's no absolutely rigid outline every romance must have. But there is enough consistency to enable us to prepare and analyze a kind of master outline. This is what Gwen Hayes does in her craft book, Romancing the Beat, How to Plot a Romance Novel. And she goes through tropes and, of course, story beats. Remember, I do have a video about story beats that you can watch after you watch this one. Story beats, again, with an emphasis on the major moments in the narrative arc of the character's love affair. That's what we're going to mean by beats for this. So to follow this precisely is to be purely formulaic within the genre, and that's okay for some audiences. You know, for example, Hallmark romance, and I've consumed lots of Hallmark romances. Right? A Hallmark romance movie, for example, will follow the pattern more than half of the time, along with deploying some additional tropes that Hallmark prefers. And if you watch Hallmark, you know what I mean. Like, for example, the city girl going back to the country town, like that kind of thing. Right? So Gwen Hayes is a smart author, and she does acknowledge the possibility of variations based on things like hybrid subgenres. And also her book is from 2016, so some subgenres that people are interested in now, like romantasy, weren't in the conversation at that time. So in presenting this to you, I want to give you some basics to build upon. There's no intention to replace the reading and study you should do for the subgenres you prefer. And you should also absolutely get Hayes' book, which has a lot more in it than this video is going to have. Okay. So Hayes divides the romance part of the narrative into 4 phases, and I'm going to tell you about those in just a moment. Of the 4 phases in Hayes' book is the setup. I would say it's kind of matches with the first act of the 3-act structure. It has a similar purpose. It creates the conditions for the main action of the romance narrative. So first you bring in the 2 main characters and establish their identities and their problems. And you want them to be fully developed characters, you know, who exist and have lives and agency separate from their interaction. And this is how we can understand the value when they get involved in each other's lives, how they make a difference for each other, and also so they have things to do together and things to talk about. Next, you do what's called a meet cute. Now, this term doesn't originate with Gwen Hayes. It's been around for a long time, but it's an interaction between the 2 when they first meet that makes them really kind of a little pop when they discover each other. They're aware of each other. In Hallmark movies, I've seen a lot of coffee being spilled by accident in a coffee shop. Or a vehicle breaks down and one person helps the other. So these are typical Hallmark ones. Not all meet cutes are actually cute. And, you know, my advice is not to try to make your meet cute be really dynamically weird or no one's ever done it before. Just make your meet cute be organic and let the characters you've created create the interest by the way they interact. Okay. So we're going to the third part of the first phase, which Hayes calls No Way Number 1. So this is what happens when the characters have a resistance to being together. They think, oh, well, I can't be with that person. I don't like that one because of this thing or that thing, or because I'm not ready, or because this isn't a good time for me. And I would say that I'm going to invoke Shakespeare's Queen Gertrude from Hamlet. Lady doth protest too much, methinks. This is a case where the people are resisting, and honestly, you kind of feel like something inside them knows that they shouldn't be resisting, so they're fighting with themselves. At the end of phase 1 is what she calls the adhesion of love beat. A plot element that forces the characters to interact and deal with each other, even though no way number one happened. So it's something related to work or family or a crisis, anything from being stuck in an elevator to having to team up on a project. It doesn't really matter, because the whole point of it is that we spend time with these characters and enjoy how they get to know each other, both the conflicts we enjoy and also the connections that we enjoy. So that is phase one, the first third or so of your romance story. Phases 2 and 3 should correspond lengthwise to maybe Act 2 of the 3-act structure. Phase 2 is falling in love. Phase 3 is retreating from love. So phase 2 begins with no way number 2, which is the characters being stuck together despite their commitment to resisting each other. You then go on to what Hayes calls the inkling. Now, an inkling, just general definition, is a small hint. Hayes uses this term to mean that the ongoing interaction causes the characters to realize, hey, they actually do have chemistry, and hey, they have in some way misjudged each other. You know, this guy's not so bad. You know, this woman's not that bad. So the opposites attract type of a formula, which is very common and very effective in romance, can really play in here to this part. You then go into what's called deepening desire, which is the serious romantic interaction as they progress to deeper connection. Along with this comes a phase called maybe this could work, which they begin to embrace the possibility. Like, I'm really starting to feel it here. Now, if you are a consumer of romances like I am, you're recognizing all of these. You can think about, oh, I remember this is all in this one and this one, this one that I read, that I watched, and so on. So phase 2 ends with what Hayes calls the midpoint of love, a substantial leap forward in their connection, ranging from a kiss to a hookup, depending on your genre's spice level. And for those who are uninitiated, the spice level is the amount of detail about physical intimacy and the level of physical intimacy that the characters have. But phase 3 is going to get in the way of this happy spot in phase 2, because phase 3 is resistance to love, starting with the inkling of doubt. We had the inkling, which was positive. Now this is the inkling of doubt. It shows them wondering, did I make a mistake? Did I go too far? Is this person really good for me? Probably both of them are starting to have their doubts about it. And phase 3 goes on to what's called deepening of doubt, in which something goes wrong. They have a fight, or there's a damning revelation, or return of their initial compatibility doubts is strengthened by what I'm going to use the term buyer's remorse. They're like, what did I do? Oh, this was a mistake. Because of that thing. I'm betrayed. Why didn't she tell me? You know, that kind of, all that. And oh no, there we get what's called retreat. They move apart. They do other things. They're still thinking about each other, but in a painful way. Oh, why did I do that? I shouldn't have opened up. Now I made a mistake. Blah, 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 blah. Use this time to develop the non-romantic subplots and to have your characters spend time with the interesting supporting characters that you've built up. And then we get to shields, a further story beat in phase 3, which reinforces their anxious rejection of one another. Shields up, I should say. Shields up, a further story beat, which they reinforce their rejection of one another. And phase 3 ends with breakup, which is a confirmation. That's it. Done. We are separate. We're not going to be together anymore. The end. Pause recording. Now it's time for phase 4, which Hayes calls it fighting for love. I'd set it about equal length, roughly, to Act 3 and 3-act structure. It's about the characters working through the obstacles that made them break up, especially their own psychological resistance, and then they finish the story as a couple. So phase 4 starts with the dark night of the soul, as you might expect. This gives me that same vibe, I think, as the Dark Knight of the Soul part of the Save the Cat framework, that all is lost beat, you might say. These characters are just miserable without each other. They have to confront the loss that being apart represents, and then they do what's waking up and shaking off the darkness and making a decision to clean up their act and reunite. So you get then what's called the grand gesture, which is one character's big dramatic effort to reconnect with the other. And this is, I guess, in some of the more conservative or traditional modes, then this is the male character who does this, but I imagine that it could go either way. Depends on who your characters are and the situation which you've set up for them. Right? The final plot element is called Wholehearted, and this is a depiction of the characters back together and committed to one another. This could contain a marriage proposal, a passionate bedroom encounter, a dinner conversation about their plans, whatever matches the subgenre and the nature of the characters. And then you would quite likely have an epilogue which shows them after some time together, established firmly, and possibly, depending on your subgenre, you could have the HEA, the happily ever after. So, in summary, Hayes has codified what already existed. This set of genre tropes, which have obviously variants and subvariants, that she didn't make it up, but what you have here is a list of what is typically done, which you can then build upon to make the individual work that is yours, or to make something that is very standardized for an audience that doesn't like a lot of variety. So now I want to give you an example that I've made up, and rather than create brand new characters, I chose the parents of the protagonist of my School of the Ages series. That is Martin Moore and Magdalene, who will become Moore. So here's their story. Intro. Magdalene is working as a hotel catering manager, and she wants a better career. Martin is a little bit older. He is Indian. He's established an import business, and it's growing, but he's stuck in a dead-end relationship with a woman that he's tired of. So they have their meet cute because he goes to the hotel in regard to some import items the hotel has ordered, and they have an argument over the delivery time, have a strong visceral reaction to one another, and that opposites attract feel because he's very kind of chill by nature and she is kind of tense by nature. In the no way number one, he doesn't want to be with such a nervous woman. She doesn't want to be with somebody who jokes and takes things lightly. So yeah, opposites attract. In the adhesion of love section, Magdalene doesn't trust Martin, so she takes a supporting character and goes to the warehouse to supervise the delivery, and they sit together for hours waiting for the truck until long after her supporting character leaves, and the connection happens. So that is the end of phase one. In phase two, well, let me move to a new location. In phase two, which is the falling in love phase, Martin breaks up with his girlfriend, but he does it thinking he's just going to be alone. This is no way number two. I'm going to be alone. I'm not with that uptight girl I just met at the hotel. And she tells her parents and, how she's feeling at her end, and they just treat it like a joke because they know how to read their daughter and they know that this guy has had an impact on her. So we get to the inkling. Magdalene's parents convince her that there is some emotional thing going on for her. And in a post-breakup fight with his now ex, Martin realizes the same thing. So we get to the deepening desire in phase two. Martin goes by the hotel. They have a late night dinner in the hotel kitchen. And this brings us to phase two. Maybe this could work. And they are drawn fully to each other. They take a romantic drive to Jones Beach and stay up all night. And now we are at the midpoint of love, and the beach seems like a good place for a couple's first lovemaking experience. So they talk about their life goals, and they find more compatibility, and they discover that they are physically compatible as well. I'm going to phase 3, but let me switch benches. I was going to use this bench, but as you can see, it's not suitable. Now we've gotten to phase 3, the retreating phase. We have an inkling of doubt. So at breakfast the next day, Magdalene learns that Martin has a recent breakup and gives him an earful about it. He feels that he was transparent. He doesn't think he should be scolded, and now they're both kind of wondering if they pushed too fast and too far. This goes to deepening doubt. Also in phase 3, they complain to their confidants about each other, and this leads to the retreat. He is actually present for the hotel event that his imports are supposed to be there for, and they basically snub each other because they're both withdrawing. And then shields up. Martin decides it's ridiculous to fight. He tries to reconcile, but Magdalene fights with him again, and his response is insulting to her. Not that he feels good about that. And so they break up. They are officially done. So phase 4 is fighting for love. I love that crow. Phase 4, fighting for love. The dark night of the soul. Martin goes back to his ex, but he can't bear the sight of her, so that doesn't last very long. And Magdalene is crying to her parents. There comes then the wake-up stage. Martin is like, no, come on, I got to fix this. He is more of an optimist out of the two of them. So he plans a sumptuous Indian meal that he's going to cook for her. And Magdalene's parents also are like, come on, you like this guy. You haven't liked anybody like this, so let's do something. And they drive her all the way to the workhouse. And they drive her all the way to the warehouse, kind of forcing her, but not really, so that she can go in and fix it. So the grand gesture, Magdalene shows up, ready to burst with her feelings about the situation. And Martin's like, shh, shh, shh. Come. Let's go. I'm going to cook dinner for you. Haha. So in the grand gesture, he takes her home and he makes the Indian meal. And for our comedy part here, unfortunately, his cooking is not good. So in the wholehearted stage, Magdalene tells him pretty much his cooking is not good. But she's still impressed by the gesture. She wants to be with him. And tomorrow she'll make the same meal for him. They agree, and they agree that dinner together could be like every night from now on. And so they are now committed to being a couple. And in the epilogue, we see them bringing home their infant son, who has a magical twinkle in his eye. And this is, of course, the main character of my School of the Ages series. So there we go. I walked through this whole thing. Hope you liked it, as well as the views of La Cimetière de Montmartre in the background. Please do go and get Gwen Hayes' book for a lot more information on this. And write to me also with your questions, like and subscribe. Thank you so much.